We've got a high traffic morning here. I'd like to welcome you to Wuppertal, that's in Germany. And we will be taking a look today at the childhood home of one Friedrich Engels. So you might recognize that name as being the other bearded guy. Along with his buddy Karl Marx, he was one of the intellectual founders of this whole concept called communism. And while he didn't get quite that same name recognition as his buddy Marx, who, have these terms like Marxism or Marxism-Leninism, Engels kind of missed out on that aspect of things, goes a little bit more under the radar, nonetheless very important guy, and we are going to, as I mentioned, take a look at his childhood home. Friedrich Engels has quite the interesting family background, given that he is a founding father of such a leftist political movement. He grew up in a very wealthy family here in Wuppertal, in the lap of luxury with lots of money around him as he was a kid. They were wealthy owners of a number of textile mills. And so they were industrialists. They were the ownership class. And it was at Bremen that he first started to have some of these ideas that conflicted again with his family background, and started to come into conflict with his father, who really wanted Friedrich to be the next leader of the company business. After he went to Bremen, his next stop was Great Britain. And that's where Engels really started to do a lot of investigation into the industrialization and the working class people who worked in these different factories and mills in Great Britain. And he started to really think about these concepts about the majority of the population sort of being taken advantage of by these wealthy industrialists who, again, were representative of his own family background. Now that we have seen the statue, which was a gift from China in 2010, let us take a look at the boyhood home itself, which you might have noticed these two identical structures coming up. If you guessed it's the one on the left, you would be correct. And as I mentioned earlier, Engels has kind of gone down in history as the supporting or secondary kind of member of this duo. Sort of like maybe the Oates of Hall & Oates. But you kind of have to wonder too about, when you have these collaborations, these duos where one is sort of primary, the other secondary, would Daryl Hall have done everything that he did without John Oates? Or in this case, would Karl Marx gone on to develop this leftist political theory to the extent that he did without the close collaboration and influence of one Friedrich Engels? So let's get a close-up of this very heavy slate that hangs on so many of the buildings in Wuppertal, and somehow they can sort of make that into tiles or shingles and then just hang it on the outside of these buildings. You can imagine how heavy all of that would be. And now I am going to go knock on the front door. So as we close things out today, from outside Friedrich Engels' birthplace at a very busy road, I've got two interesting items for you. The first, you might see that structure, which is a very interesting transportation structure known as the Schwebebahn. And as we'll see when we cross the street, it is essentially built over the top of the Wupper River here in Wuppertal. And perhaps you can imagine on a normal day there would be something like rail cars that would just be moving along underneath that structure. As it turns out, today the Schwebebahn is on strike. So a very fitting way to close out this video on Friedrich Engels, with a Schwebebahn on strike and a Friedrich Engels picture only on green. And the cross signal here in Wuppertal. So we'll sign off for now with a view of the Schwebebahn, which was built here around 1900. Thanks for joining. Hope we'll see you on the next one. Until then, goodbye.